Hi guys, my name's Kieran, and today we're going to look at what I think is going to be the best quick team in Haikyuu. So, I've looked at a lot of teams recently, and personally, as like a fan, it just really annoys me because I think there's this one team which is obviously really strong, which people are sleeping on, so I kind of literally made this whole channel just to talk about it. I love team building, so you'll probably see more team building videos in the future, so let's have a look. Okay, so this is the team. It starts with Atsumu. Atsumu is the clear pick, and the reason behind that is that because, quite frankly, there's no other quick setters in the game except Kageyama, who is just not up to scratch. Therefore, he is the only pick. Then you've got Osamu, who is obviously the twin, goes with it, they pair together really well, they've got bonds, it's a logical suggestion, right? The only thing is that the thing with all the twins, all the time, since you are, is how awkward they are to work around. Because if you don't have the right builds, they are basically anti-synergistic to most players in the game. And the reason behind that is because they require low awareness and high attack technique. And most characters benefit from or actively gain awareness throughout a game. The thing which separates the SP versions from the UR versions though is that 1. Atsumu can force crits when he sets to someone with 60% attack technique or over according to his skill 3. And 2, reflex is not a factor in this. So you could build as much reflex as you want and they would still get the insight buff, which Atsumu needs to basically force someone to crit. Knowing this, I think some of the main beneficiaries of this would be Hinata, right? Hinata and Suki, because they both don't need awareness and they both increase attack technique, especially with Hinata at skill resonance 2. And if you get Hinata at skill resonance 4 and you've got all that awareness into strength, he just hits like crazy, right? So if you put them with those twins, I think you could have a really nasty comp. And that's kind of what I built my thesis around, trying to get to that 60% attack technique. So if you didn't need like a Kenma or a reflex buffer to buff up Hinata, but instead using the 60% attack technique to help Hinata. So how do we get to that number, right? It's actually not as difficult as you think. But there's a reason why all of these people are in the positions they are and who they are. So, Atsumu is obviously the first logical pick. He has 20% attack technique when he sets to a person. You've got Osamu, who gets 8% to the whole team after they use 4 skills, so it's 2% per skill. If you use the whole winter break buff with Tendo, that's another 12% on attack technique, which brings you up to 40% just there, which is why if you use the winter trio and Hinata, you've got a 40% attack technique and you've only got to get another 20. And then finally, you've got Kuro. Now Kuro doesn't seem like he fits in logically initially, but what Kuro does is when he's on front court, he gives you a 14% attack technique bonus. This puts your 40% to 54% attack technique, and by then you are within range to use potentials to easily get to the attack technique you need to crit basically. Hinata at skill resonance 2 could crit at 40% because he has a 20% individual attack technique bonus, but we want to kind of go for a team buff so that the likes of Suki can also get this buff. And then finally, just tip it over the edge so that you're not needing to use potentials when you're speaking about Suki, is that when he is debuffing an enemy, he gains 10% attack technique, and he gives the whole team 10% attack technique. So with this core, all 3 of your main hitters, being Hinata, Osamu, and Suki, will gain that attack technique at 60%, which means they can all crit, which is the most important thing. So they can all crit. Who cares? I think it's a really valuable thing because not only have you got the 60% attack technique, you've also then just got a crit off that, which is 100% awareness. And then all you need to really work on is strength, really. If you can get your potential 2s and potential 6s on strength, then you don't need to put anything else into attack technique, and each character will hit extremely hard. That being said though, if you can get Atsumu to skill resonance 4, there's some really interesting things you can do. His skill resonance 4 means that anybody who reaches 40% attack technique, he will then make it to 60%. This also means that basically, if you want to crit with Atsumu, it lowers the threshold from 40 to 60%, meaning you don't need all these attack technique buffers and you can actually use a lot of flexibility with the roster. So you can actually do some really interesting things, such as this core. This receiving core, I think, has a lot of potential to basically counter the twins in a normal quick setup, because the likes of Ginjima already get 20% of individual attack technique, which will get him to that 40% anyways when he counters a team, so it's absolutely perfect. Meanwhile, you've got the likes of Hoshiyumi as well, who, although doesn't directly benefit from this because he gets a lot of awareness, he will be hitting 80% reflex and awareness every time, meaning that it's not necessary to have him have the insight buff like the others do. Alternatively, you could run Sakuza and Komori, but I think the only issue with this is that if you do run those two, then you run the risk of not being able to hit the attack technique threshold without having to do some specific building of potentials, like a very difficult build of potentials. So another really interesting combination would be this one right here, and that is because the block type combination, I think in the future will definitely need this Winter Break combo. Hoshiyumi already specifically buffs block types with his skill 1, and people with block ultimates or get further buffed by the skill 1, which everyone here has. Furthermore, you've got Hiragami, and their bond will be definitely a block buff in itself. And the other good thing about this comp is that with Kuro frontcourt, you've already hit your attack technique threshold as a team, which means you don't have to worry about anything to do with critting or anything like that, and you can build into strength still. Same goes with Suki, he hits that threshold as long as you're kind of building like 2% of potential in every character, which I think is perfectly reasonable, right? So this is also another really, really good option for your team. And yeah, I think overall, these comps are completely slept on, and as much as they are really difficult and expensive to work towards, you know, especially if we're on global like myself, you've got plenty of time to save to them, and I think these are going to be like the most optimal teams in the game. What makes the Miya twins so good in the first place is that despite them being really awkward, because they're so specific, they grant you the biggest return if you can actually meet those requirements on all those characters and fulfill the needs of those characters, right? I think that's what's really, really special about these characters, and something I would like to see more of, getting more specialized people in so that you can get the most out of them. And I know that sounds really counterintuitive as someone who loves the team build, but when you can combine specific characters which you don't think would go with the team, for instance, like Kuro, who can give you that 14% attack technique, like Suki, who, yes, doesn't have any awareness built into his kit, but would definitely benefit from it, putting them all together into a very niche team, I think is also very exciting as well. Personally, I'm going to look to see if there's any team building I can do in the future with the likes of Aram. Aram, although he's very good in club content, is my favourite character in Haikyuu, and I'd love to see more around him, and ironically Asahi as well, so like the two kind of hard hitters who are both stamina based. They're two of my favourite characters in the show, so I'd love to do some builds around them in the future. If people have got any suggestions, I'm happy to do builds around their favourite characters as well, no matter how niche. And yeah, I enjoy team building, so I'd love to have a look, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this team as well. Is it a bit too awkward? Is it too clunky to function? Or does it hit all the right spots? Just let me know in the comments.